Hello, everyone. I am so excited today because I have one of my favorite people here at our video podcast, and that's Dr. Dina Altayeb. Dina, have just basically made sure that you live life to the fullest and that inspire many people. And I'm definitely one of the inspired people. Hi, how are you doing?
How are you, Peter? Thank you so much for this beautiful, kind introduction. You and I go a long way. I've known you from my first talk.
Yes, I think that probably 2010, maybe even
Something
earlier,
like that. Yeah, yeah.
maybe
I think
eight.
07 or 8. Yes. Okay.
Yes, yes. So for everyone else, Dina has been traveling between Vancouver, where I've practiced,
Yeah,
and Saudi Arabia, right?
that's correct. Yeah.
And you're also a dentist.
And I'm also a dentist,
You're a mother.
a mother for 3.
You're an ultramarathon runner and triathlon athlete,
That's correct.
and you're a dog lover.
I'm a lover of all animals, but especially dogs.
And so now I almost feel like I should let you tell us your story and how did it all start? When you look back, how did this all happen, from childhood and what influences there have been? And how did you blend dentistry and being an athlete and dogs and being a mother? It's kind of unbelievable. And traveling between two very different countries as well. It makes me very intrigued and I would like to know.
I don't think I planned it like that, Peter. I think it just naturally happened. So I grew up in a, normal home in Saudi Arabia. I had a mom who was an athlete. So that was my biggest influence for my athletic life. So my mom was a runner in her school at that time in Egypt, since she went to school in Egypt, at a time where not too many girls even went to school. We were talking like 1940s, 1950s. She's my biggest inspiration because I grew up seeing a mother who was fit and active and athlete. And that's kind of what we see as or we grow up to the norm. I didn't try, but I think my kids also see that as their norm. They also grew up holding finisher signs and mommy, you can do it, and painting on pavement and stuff. So, I still keep the t-shirts of my kids, at every race, they all, they're young and they color the t-shirt and they hold, the highlighter and stuff. So I keep them. I look at them sometimes and just laugh.
So it sounds like you believe in programming early, programming the mind, and also creating the right habits early on and looking at people who inspire you. How did this all turn into athletics? Can you share the story of how you first got involved with triathlons and training and competition? Obviously, your mother had a big influence, but is there anyone else who's influenced you? I know you also helped you to train and go against all the heat of Saudi Arabia, the weather that is obviously very hot in the summers, and then traveling as well. Like, how did it lead to triathlons and ultra marathons? It's kind of
Yeah.
unbelievable.
It's kind of a funny story because I grew up, as I told you, like being influenced by my mother. But then I've always been a fit person, but not really focused in any specific sport. So when I went to study in Boston, my dentistry, and, I just got to join like a 5K race, 10K running race, but just for fun. And until I kind of stumbled upon triathlon and specifically Ironman. I didn't really plan it, but I had a lot of funny stories with that, but I was hiking one day in the mountains and I was hiking with a trainer who told me he was training people for Ironman. At the beginning, I thought it was a weightlifting competition because this is what makes sense, Ironman and maybe something like CrossFit. But when he explained to me, I'm like, oh, this sounds awful. By the end of the summer, he said, let's do a duathlon, which is a run event. So I looked at the ocean there, it was in San Diego, and I looked at the big waves. I'm like, oh my God, I never put myself in this situation. And I remember just spending so much time stretching between, and
At the end,
people.
you did. So, what was your first experience of that? Do you remember your first race?
That was my first race. I remember I put a yoga mat and stretched in between. I see these people running back and forth. I'm thinking, no, we should like rush to the end. And gradually I improved. And every year I set myself, I'm a goal-oriented person. So every year I set myself a goal that is a little more difficult than the goal before until I did my first Ironman and I got the Ironman bug and started doing more and more of them. And every year, because it's a competition against yourself, it's not a competition against anyone else. It's you being a better version of yourself.
Have you learned anything about yourself and, how do you harness your ego, or is there ego?
There is a lot. I've been doing triathlon for over 20 years now. So I've gone through like many stages. We are also always influenced by our coach. So when
Mhm.
you're coached by someone, you kind of adopt the same coach philosophy. So I moved, through the years between different coaches. I had coaches where like I'm a little more egocentric. It's, oh, you got to go there and like, beat everybody and be, the first one and look at your competition. But that wasn't me. That didn't bring the best
Mhm.
out of me at all. I am always intrigued by a coach that is more on the spiritual side. Like there is a higher meaning beyond racing on the physical level, beyond just racing, to just cross the finish line and, have a rank that, what is your rank within that day? It's more than that. It's like, why are you doing this in the first place? What does it mean to you? Why are you putting yourself through this stress? There's always a reason.
So why are you doing it? Why? What does it mean to you?
I also transformed. Like when I started, I was doing it because I thought it was a challenge, that I was doing it to get better because I didn't know how to get better until you get to a level where you say, okay, now I kind of am a better. Now I need to get to my next goal, which was to get to the championship in Kona. So that was my goal for about a big part of my 12, 15 years of racing. And then after that, I had a biggest, like almost a turning moment where like, okay, now you've been working so hard on a milestone or on an achievement. And now you got to that achievement. So what's next? Do you still continue to do it or do you move to something else? And there's a bit of a phase of stillness that we have to go through to
Mm.
think of why are you, and do we still want to do this? And will it still have the same excitement as it did? And now, I've gone 4 times to Kona and it's still as special to my heart as the first time. But now I do it for a different reason. I don't do it because I, want to get there. I do it because I really enjoy that place. I
Mm.
connect more to our, higher spiritual energy and try to help everybody. And it's beyond just, I'm going to put myself through so much struggle to get under this, time to be there. It's more because I really love the sport.
I'm listening to you and listening to you getting the Kona and then having a period of stillness. I know that some people feel down or they get even depressed when they reach their goal. Olympic athletes and high performers like you sometimes kind of reach to that goal and they really ask the question, what shall I do now? And they're lost. They feel lost. So it seems like you found your way and you actually it seems like you enjoy the period of stillness and you enjoy to kind of like the contemplation around what do I do now? How do I decide? And then it's really inspiring to see how you navigate through life and you always see the positive side. Do you think that this is your genes and your parents' contribution to you being that way? Or do you think that this is what you created or this is what you became over time?
I think it's both. But it's a blessing. It's something that if you can look into the glass half full, you will always have a better outlook at life because we always see the world from our own glasses. And I've always said that I cannot pass my expertise to anyone if I have not achieved my dream. Because if I've not gotten to the goals that I set, how can I inspire you to get to your goal? So once I reached that, milestone, then I said to myself, okay, well, now I'm ready to kind of pass on the torch to someone else and enjoy mentoring other people. But in the meantime, I'm not ready to quit yet. I don't think I quit easily. So I just have to look at life again from a different glasses. So my glasses cannot be, I'm going to be the best version of myself because, as we age, as we progress in life, your past may be the fastest time of your life. Now is how can I be healthy? How can I enjoy the process more? So instead of beating myself up, like how can I be fully present in everything that I do, even in the training? I have to find why am I still want to do this? Because the why is quite important. And in anything in life, if we don't know why we're doing it, are we doing it because of everybody else? Are we doing it for society? Are we doing it for status?
Mhm.
Are we doing it for our own self? So if I can do something for my own self, then I'd be much more present and I'll achieve a lot more.
And you'll be able to be there for others because I definitely see that you are caring for many, whether it's humans and also animals. We'll be kind of probably going back and forth between the different parts of your life. But, obviously, I met you as a dog lover. And if I could give you one label as a client of mine for many years, I would just say extremely loving and caring beyond, you're in the upper 1% of the clients who are always there for your animals, like who always try to do the best. And that's what's intrigued me, because despite you being busy, and I've seen many busy people, you seem to always find time for what matters in life. And you seem to always find time for animals and really give them the best, the very best care, your love, attention, making sure that you even travel with your animals back and forth because you didn't want to leave them behind, and, your competitions and so on. So I always thought that the Middle Eastern culture is not as dog centric, and he completely blew away all my preconceived ideas, what it was. And I love that, because it's good. It's good for us to realize that the world is not what we think it is. So how did you get your dogs, and how did it all start? And was there a dog that really was your soul dog? Because a lot of our listeners have their soul dog, so they connect with a certain dog. So tell me more.
So I think now I can see a pattern of my life. Like whenever I say I'll never do something, I end up doing it just as much. So I remember, like what you said, like it's not having a dog is not part of our culture. So we didn't grow up having dogs. And I had a phobia to dogs. I was like terrified. So if I go somewhere and they have a dog, I'll ask maybe 10 times whether the dog is on a leash before I can step into the house. And I remember my son, Hisham, he was about like 5 or 6 years old. And he kept on like, can I have a dog? Can I have a dog? And I'm like, no, absolutely not. You cannot have a dog. He kept on insisting for like over a year. And then I said, okay, I'll go with you to the breeder and I'll look at the dog. And if I feel I like the dog, we can make that decision. If not, then we can, go back to not having a dog, and that'd be fine. So we said, okay. And at that time, the breeder was in Cologne. So we drove to Cologne with the whole family. And then we went to this little cute lab puppy that was about just a few months old. And I just held the dog in my hand and I was not scared at all.
Wow.
So we ended up getting the dog that day. And after that, I transformed. I was not scared. I was to the opposite of being terrified of dogs. I was like a big dog lover. But of course, taking the responsibility as a parent to having a pet, meaning this pet will eventually end up with a parent. Because, the kids, like no matter how committed they are, then be committed for a little bit. And then, it's a soul that lives in your house. You got to take care of it. And at the time we're talking for like early on, maybe in the 2008, 2009, there weren't as many vet clinics and stuff. So you kindly, like where my husband does every time something happens and the dog needs care, I'll phone you, Peter. These are the symptoms. And with my like medical background, I could navigate through many of them.
Yeah. When we were in Saudi, I remember.
Yeah, we had Skip, my dog, and I never forget this, Peter. I came with both dogs to your house in Vancouver. And I don't know why we came. I think maybe I was supposed to pick up something from your house or medicine. And then you looked at the dog, Skip, and you said, why does he have a lump in his neck? And then you looked and you're like, oh my God, something is going on. I got aspirated. And then you're like, Dina, go get it checked right now. And it ended up that Skip had cancer, and you helped me through that. Like we, navigated through that obstacle because there weren't many clinics that would offer that care. And we tried, we gave him as much help as we can until the day was there when he needed to pass.
Yeah. And, I also really enjoyed, and this is something that is important to mention, how you navigated through this difficult and challenging situation, and how I think Skip lived longer than most dogs with his diagnosis. And it was because of you, and because you've chosen not to really necessarily go for some sort of extreme measures of chemotherapy, but you used more holistic approaches and methods. And we knew that the situation was difficult, but you were there until the very last heartbeat, and kind and loving, and at the same time, pragmatic or kind of level-headed, I would say, when it comes to those situations. And that really is inspiring. And that's how you are. So how many dogs do you have now?
Now I have 4 dogs, but I had 7 at one point. Because again, my kids, they'd get pets and then they either travel, move on with their life, or, have a significant other. And my son got married, and I didn't the dog already lived with me for so many years. So it's hard to get out. And I love dogs are just like humans. They all have their different
Uh-huh.
personalities. Everyone takes a role in the house. And
Is there anything that you've learned from them?
dogs teach you unconditional love because dogs are loyal. They'll always wait for their owner to come, or they'll always wait for me by my door. Even if I'm traveling, they think that I'll come out of the room and, give them the treats and go out to the garden and have some like morning time. So dogs are loyal and they love you no matter what. They love you if you're grumpy. They love you if you're happy, if you're not happy. They're always 100% excited to see you. If we
Yeah.
can live that as humans, we'd be a lot happier, I think. Because they don't have expectation of you. They don't love you only if you give them freedom. They don't love you if you don't.
I may object to that because when I have ice cream or something like that, my dog expects me to give him some. So
When
I
it
know
comes to
exactly.
food, it's a different situation.
But I do know what you're saying because, I was just saying dogs don't really care what we look like, how old we are, whether we have wrinkles, whether we are thin or heavy or, there is no judgment. And I think that's why we have so much connection with them. It's unbelievable.
And they know, like, they can sense you. They can sense your energy and sense whether you're happy or if you're not happy. And if you're not happy, they won't say anything, but they just sit by your side, kind of telling you, okay, we're there if you need something.
If you had a person who's never had a dog and maybe a person who is afraid of dogs, what would you tell them if you met them for coffee or?
I remember one time I went to somewhere in South Africa to a farm and they had a lot of, farm dogs. And I stayed in my room for 3 days that I wouldn't go off because I was so scared. So I don't think there would be anyone that was as terrified as I was with dogs. And yet there'll always be a turning point if we choose to.
It sounds like you think that everyone could be a dog lover if they held a puppy or if they held
Yeah,
a
but it's
connection
because
to a
we're
dog.
not introduced to this as children. I think it's very healthy to introduce children to animals. It could be a cat or a dog or anything else. So kids would learn to care for someone else
Mhm.
other than themselves. It teaches them to just start lives by caring for others.
Yes, exactly. It's a good foreplay for children. And speaking of children, you have, I believe, 2 children.
No, I have 3 kids and I have a grandbaby. And my grandbaby would come to the house and just play with the dogs.
So you're telling me your grandma, that doesn't
I'm
really,
grandma.
it
Yeah,
doesn't,
I'm a young grandma.
that's unbelievable. Tell me about your children and their love for dogs because I know they're dog lovers. And first, I want to know how they are because I haven't seen them for quite some time.
I told them I'm having a podcast with you. I was like, oh my God, say hi to Peter. They all know you very well. And whenever any of my dogs, would have a health issue, they would, Mom, call Peter.
I get the odd text. Yeah. What can we do about this?
Yeah. So Hisham, my son, he volunteers for the dog shelter.
Mhm.
And he also has all sort of animals in his house with his baby, which he grows up to be like just very free and very.
What kind of dog does?
He's rescued most of his dogs. He has Bree. She's a dog that had the spina bifida.
Only the short hair.
So that dog couldn't have surgery because I think of her conditions. And he decided to adopt the dog. And this dog now runs with my dogs. There's nothing. And she's so happy to be around with. He's got smaller one and bigger ones.
Oh my goodness.
And of course, Lana, she's the one that has Snickers, the famous Snickers.
Yes.
With his own Instagram. And I think.
What is the handle of Snickers if people wanted to?
I got to find that out. I'll find it and I'll text it to you.
Sure, no problem.
And he's got his own outfits or something. He's a little older now. He's, I think, maybe 13.
Yeah,
And
because
he's,
I know Snickers since he was a puppy. I've known him.
Yes.
It's so lovely to actually see such a family of dog lovers, such an inspiring family of dog lovers living in Saudi Arabia. I think that for people, this is a real alteration of the views, how we see other countries, right? I know that from my own experience because I came from the Czech Republic, Canada. And when I arrived, when I said I was from the Czech Republic, people would go, oh, the country. And while, Prague is now the 6th or 7th most visited city in Europe. And, it's always been cultured and education was good and we didn't really suffer. And people had this idea from the propaganda that life is much worse than it actually was. So I completely understand in line. And, I'm curious. And I think that I'm going to make a trip one day if there's an opportunity.
Yeah, no, I think people of Saudi Arabia love animals, maybe not necessarily dogs, but a lot of people love cats, have cats. They have birds as
Uh-huh.
well.
Uh-huh.
Very common for people to have birds. And I think we all as human can connect with animals.
Of course, that's where we belong. We belong in nature, and we created these artificial environments. And I think that even your running, from what I sense, is about connecting with nature and just kind of noticing the world around.
Very true. Very true. Like every place that I go to, every race that I go to, I would always research the city before the race. Because I've traveled as I said, through 20 years, I've traveled across the world to do races in different cities. And if the city has a little bit of maybe it's a little more intense vibes, it doesn't quite
Mhm.
fit. But I love to go to a place where, that's why Hawaii is special, because it's just in nature. There's not as much light pollution. It's quite a virgin island. It's really, really beautiful.
Mhm.
Same with many other places that I've raced across the world, where the energy would be like you're very much at one with nature, and that brings the best out of you.
And you also feel the elements. You feel the ocean, you feel the volcano, the lava, the earth. And, it's very harmonious and peaceful place. And at the same time, it's very violent. So I think that's what I like about Hawaii is the contrast, and that there's all the weathers. You can get
Mhm.
tropics to the snow and snowstorms, and all the temperatures basically. And the ocean can be very mild and very gentle and very
Yeah.
savage.
And the thing about Hawaii is you have to kind of embrace yourself within that energy. You can't go away with a huge ego saying, I'm
No,
course today,
absolutely.
because you're going to get crushed. And that's about your elements of the island. But if you kind of surrender to the environment and to and ask for that to bring the best out of you, then you have a really fantastic day. But the more I do these races, the more I really get to see that it's not about you finishing time, but it's more about the journey leading to the race and also the journey within the race.
So through exercise and through fitness and through endurance and through all that, you basically access the deeper core, the deeper soul of yours, and you're able to understand it better.
You're exposed, like the endurance races exposes your core, exposes your commitment. You're totally exposed because you won't survive.
I find Hawaii, and we'll stay with Hawaii a little bit, because when I started coming here in the 2000s, I felt that there were a lot of people who were quite unhappy. And my philosophy about it was that they come to paradise, but they take themselves with them when they arrive,
Yeah,
right? They
yeah,
brought
yeah,
themselves
yeah.
with them. That's in quotation marks. And then it takes a little while. I think that, and as you said, I love that you said that when they fight it, when they fight what is, they're going to get beaten down, right, by the circumstances. And Maui is definitely like that. I think that the volcanic energy runs parallel with human energy. When people arrive here, everything comes to the surface. Remember one time in Maui when I organized a retreat for about 12 very advanced yogis from Vancouver. They arrived here and we had maybe a 5 or 6 day retreat. In the middle of the retreat, everyone fell apart
So
emotionally and partially physically. And I was going like, oh my goodness, like how is that possible? Because I used to attend these classes of the two yoga teachers that taught us. And I thought it was okay because I've been to Maui or had been to Maui for some time. But it was very interesting to see. So I understand. Based on what I've learned about anthropology and humans, evolution has programmed us to preserve energy, to eat when we can, and then be lazy. So we just procreate and have children. But that's what nature has intended for us. And now we're in a different situation and we need to keep healthy and we want to live longer and healthier. The first question that I have is, do you have any recommendations for people to overcome laziness or not getting to looking after their health when it comes to activity?
good question, Peter. But I think from my perspective, it's all about finding a bigger goal. And for me, it's about finding a challenging goal. I went through that process too, before like doing any of the races and stuff. I would be very fit in the gym and can do, all the push-ups and pull-ups and stuff. But that to me lacked a cause to be motivated. Okay, go do the class, but I needed something better than just, oh, I want to look good. So to me, what my motivation is always, is having a race. Because I know when I have a race, I have something to work towards, and I have a plan, and I have a goal, and I have steps. And for how my scientific brain works, this is perfect because it keeps everything around me organized. And when I'm organized internally, I'm also organized externally, because if I have a race and a plan, then everything fits within that plan. Then my social life fits, my work fits, my family time fits, and it all feels very much under control, which is perfect. It's when I don't have stuff. It's when I don't have a race, and when I don't have a plan, and when I don't have a goal to work towards, that you think, okay, maybe not today. Maybe I'll just cancel the class today and maybe join tomorrow, because there's nothing, it doesn't lead to anything.
So what you're saying is that, if we want to be active, or if we want to exercise, or if we want to do something with our dogs, whatever it is, we need to set a plan. So you would set a daily plan or weekly or monthly plan, or how do you do that?
More than a plan, set definitely a goal. Like, what do I need to achieve? What would I like to achieve, within 2024? It doesn't have to be a New Year resolution or anything drastic, but, by the end of the year, this is what I hope to be, or this is, it depends on the person and how much of a goal-oriented personality they have. But if they are something similar to me, then they'd feel comfortable saying, okay, by the end of the year, I want to do my first 10K. Mm-hmm. Then they will feel that they have something to work towards. Mm-hmm. But then, end of the year is 12 months away. So I got to have like smaller little goals. And if I have that, then I'd say, okay, maybe I'll take my dogs for a walk, on 2 of the days and make it a hike. And then I'll run on the other days. And then you have kind of to make a plan that fits.
So it's, if let's say any of our dog lovers in the community would like to be more active with their dogs, they would basically take a calendar and say, every day I'll do 10,000 steps with my dog, or 15,000 steps with my dog. And then twice a week I would go uphill or something like that, or go for a longer hike. Is that how you would do it? You would make a plan?
Yeah. And usually this is where also it ties into how my goal transformed into like being more of a mentor for someone that wants to take a goal like that. We get very excited as human beings. So in the beginning, you'd say, okay, I'm going to go 10,000 steps every day, hikes twice a week, and you do it for the first 2-3 days. Then you realize it's just not sustainable. So what I would do is I would sit with you and say, okay, Peter, so what other commitments do you have in your life? And you say, well, I have, a demanding job. I'm on Zoom call from 7 a.m. till like noon. And I would say, okay, well, maybe it's unrealistic that you'd go at 6 every morning to go for your 10,000 steps. So how about we make the 10,000 steps every other day, and we make a hike just once a week? It's someone having something realistic that would still serve you to your plan, but also having the accountability of you, having to check in with me and saying, hey, yeah, I've done it, or I didn't do it, because I personally get too excited and commit to too many things. And then I realize, I don't think I can fit. And rather than the goal being something motivational, it becomes an added stressor to our life.
This makes me really think of one thing, and that is whether our community could contact you, the members of our community could contact you if they have certain goals. So whether they're in fitness or health or other life goals, because it sounds like you have your life really well together. How do you mentor people?
Well, I don't think I have my life fully together, but I, as much as I can within my control, because of my personality and my training and my upbringing and my medical background, I do want into setting a plan and, helping someone, mentoring them. First of all, finding a dream or finding a goal, and then how would you reach that goal within the limitations that we have in life? So definitely anybody can contact me.
Maybe I'll book a session.
You'll be my number one client.
I know that many people these days are reading and listening and watching videos on how to stay fit, how to be fit, how to lose weight, how to eat better, how to prevent heart disease and diabetes and all that. Do you have any recommendations? Do you have any points that you'd like to share?
No shortcuts. Everybody's looking for a shortcut. We're all into a fast-moving society where we have no time. We don't have time to read anything. We want to give us the steps to do. But really, when it comes to your health, there's no shortcuts. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. If you want to fit, you got to do the work. There's no pill that would make you fit. There's no pill that would make you lose weight. And it is just about being okay with less perfect results. because we are looking into these perfect, models, filtered Instagram,
Adjusted AI
AI,
images
and you're
yeah.
like, yeah, why can't I be like that person? But I learned this from one of my friends and trainers. She said, she was a little older than me. So she said, when you look at your photos 10 years from now, you say, oh my God, I looked so good. But at that time, you said, oh, no, I wish I could lose a little bit of hair. And then I would say to myself, what would my body tell me? All these legs that have carried me through all these marathons, all these races, all these, day in, day out. We put so much abuse on my body and return say, oh, I don't like you. I don't like my body. I don't like how I look like. No, I think we have to be graceful and be kind to ourselves. And we try and be better version of ourselves. We try to eat better just because we want to have a healthier lifestyle. We want to have a healthier quality of life, especially when we get older, but not because I'm unhappy with how I look right now. Because if I'm unhappy, there's something deeper than my looks. It's not my looks that is making me unhappy. There's a deeper layer of unhappiness. So me changing my looks is not going to solve the inner core problem.
What do you think healthy diet is for a person who wants to stay well for many years to come?
Eating more real food. Because we are, as humans, we want to eat real food, not packaged food.
Real food.
Not everything that comes out of a box or can or a bottle. Like the more natural ingredients you have, the better it is. And also be mindful when we eat that we are nourishing our body. We're not just being distracted and just eating. I don't like usually to eat and have a serious conversation because then you're just eating and not mindful of what goes in your body.
So focusing on food as well, focusing on food.
Yeah, eating slowly, focusing on food, enjoying the food that you eat and eating because you're hungry, not eating because there's an emotional feeling that you need to suppress. That's a lot of times we eat at night because we're bored. We're just wanting to eat. If you want to eat something that is relatively unhealthy, it's okay, but be mindful that you're eating it and you're present and you're enjoying it and you're eating it because of satisfying that emotion, not satisfying another emotion.
So noticing why we are eating, because sometimes, as you said, we eat because we are stressed or we are bored or we are depressed and so on. And so looking at that is super important. I often wondered, Dina, whether when we feel good about eating something yummy and something really tasty, whether it actually really causes as much harm as opposed to when we are feeling bad about it. You know what I mean?
No, I don't. I honestly, I think it's all about the energy you put. So if you're sitting with a group of friends and you're enjoying, a piece of chocolate cake or a dessert and you're all laughing, that is very positive. Don't make that is equal eating lonely at night where you feel like you're, and you don't feel good and you're like eating to kind of like just numb an emotion. It's not the same. But of course, if your lifestyle is every night you go out and you eat dessert with friends, that's also excessive.
So I'm going to go back to Saudi Arabia, if it's okay. And
Sure.
I would like you to tell us about the changes that are happening. And I know I've seen online that there's Saudi Arabia 2030. That's some sort of plan for Saudi Arabia. And I know that things are changing.
Correct. Vision 2030.
Can you tell me about the change and the plans?
Grateful that we're living this part of transformation of the Vision 2030. There's massive changes and there's great opportunities in every part, whether you're an athlete, whether you're an entrepreneur, or whether you're a musician, any talent that you have, there is a venue to nourish that talent. This is great. Like for me, I speak from being an athlete because that's my background. And, there's so many opportunities for both men and women. The government would support an athlete and help develop them and give them the resources that they need in order to excel, in order to be, on the top of their sport and compete, whether it's in the regional or international or at the Olympic level. And this is amazing. This was not the case when I was young because, the sports industry in general, the world was still, especially with triathlon, was still starting. It was not something that was developed in the Middle East. Now it's a completely different story and it's really exciting time to be there.
So the changes are happening and it's exciting.
And both for men and women. We focus many times on women just because that's, again, what the West helps portray as, society. But it's now for both.
How safe is Saudi Arabia to travel to?
Also, Saudi Arabia is very safe place, very safe place. One of the safest places on earth because it's a community that kind of takes care of each other. The crime rate is low. We just feel there are some things we take for granted, and safety is one. Your neighbors are going to look after your house, and they'll let you know if they feel that there's suspicious activity going on, and it's a beautiful society that bonds well.
How big are the families and how big are the weddings in Saudi Arabia?
Weddings. I think weddings are not as big as they used to be, but the
Or as
families are
in India?
typically as no smaller than India. But families are relatively people love big families, and we're a community that is like family is very important. So it's very important for us to see our grandparents, our uncles, our aunts, and sometimes on a weekly basis or on a monthly basis. But it's very important for us as a culture is to be with our own family. And that's beautiful because no one leaves, if you're bored, then be like many people that would say, just come over. Your neighbor would say, come over. You're not doing anything. No one is left alone.
So you would say that loneliness is not as common as in the Western world.
But loneliness sometimes is an internal feeling. So it's not, you could be with many people and you still feel very lonely.
Yeah.
But society is very bonded.
How about seniors? Are senior homes common or?
No senior homes are not common because it's a society where we take care of each other. So we take care of our elderly, our parents, our grandparents, because we've grown up to be with them.
Yeah.
I grew up to be with my grandparents. When I was young, my parents would leave me with my grandma. So it's part of my duty is to be with my grandma.
That's beautiful because I often wondered how we got to a point where when people get to a certain age, they're basically put in these segregated communities or housing or some sort of senior centers.
Because I think that we lost the bond somewhere along the line.
There's a lot to fix, definitely.
We always feel like it's very important part of our religion is to take care of our parents because our parents took care of us when we were young. They didn't complain. They didn't say, "Oh, you're just too boring," or "You're too demanding." They put a fixed smile and they took care of us until we grow up. It's part of our duties and it carries through. You take care of your parents, your kids are going to take care of you.
And it's the role of the kids to say that the parents are boring, not the other way around.
But even if there's always something very valuable to learn from an elderly person. And I love being around elderly people because they are at the other side of life. So they'll reflect back.
They carry the wisdom. Yes.
They carry the wisdom and you're their future.
Do you still practice?
I still practice. I love my job just as much as I love triathlon. I love caring for patients. It's not what I do. And I'm really grateful. There's one thing that I'm mostly grateful for is that I live my life with passion. So what I do at work is something dear to me. What I practice when I'm being with my family, I'm a very passionate person and I can only do stuff if they are dear to me.
Do you ever get overwhelmed by juggling all those different?
I do sometimes. Yes, I do when I feel I'm pulled in too many directions because I would like to be there for anybody that needs me. Of course, because of time, we don't have more than 24 hours in the day. So it all boils down to what are my priorities.
I was just going to say it's all about the priorities, and you just said that. So if there was one final remark or something that you would like people to remember about life, an important lesson or some sort of remark that you would like to give them, what would it be?
Look at the glass half full because what we see is a reflection of our own glasses. You want to see, you want to be happy, look at happy people and smile when you see it. When I go running, I make sure that I'll smile at the person that runs across me. And like almost 9 out of 10 people will smile back. Be one person that is going for a certain pace and they don't have time to smile, but the majority will smile back.
Yeah.
And then I'll just smile and it'll make my day.
So
glass half full.
And what we see is our reflection
Of our own eyes.
I'll be going around today and notice what I see.
I mean, life is not perfect, but it's what you see.
And I love the idea that I just learned it somewhere from a podcast or article that people say, we all focus on positive, but the seemingly negative is actually the opportunity to change, the opportunity to shift the world, to be inspired and transform. And people always go, let's be positive, let's be positive. But, we can't be positive if there's something going on and it may be wrong or it may not be ideal, but it is an opportunity. Again, if you see the glass half full, it's an opportunity for change and making it better.
Well, then you could see the beauty in the imperfection. I recently saw one beautiful lady, and she was wearing like nice glasses, and I said, "Oh my God, these are beautiful glasses." And she looked at me and she said, "It's your own eyes. I can't see myself. It's how you see me."
Nice.
And that resonated with me. So every time I pass, I'm like, okay, even the ugly has a bit of beauty in it.
Thank you so much for your time here. I would chat forever, but I know that you have a day ahead. And I really look forward to seeing you again when our paths cross and maybe go for a little meal and chat and talk about dogs and fitness and nutrition and life and philosophy and all that.
Next time, Peter, I'm interviewing you.
Oh my goodness.
Because I'm pretty sure all your, fans and, dog lovers would want to know more about Peter.
I don't know.
Yes.
We're at that situation where I prefer interviewing because I'm curious and I love to learn about people and being inspired, which has happened definitely today. And I also love giving gifts as opposed to receiving them. So I will promise that I will not resist, but it's not my natural state of being. That's for sure.
Yeah, but we'll ask you questions that will bring the best.
Okay, great. That's a deal. Thank you, Dina.
Oh, thank you, Peter. Thank you.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.